Morning, folks. Typical Minnesota weather. I think we just last week had 12 or 14 inches. The week before we had 6. And as of right now, I've been told that we're at like 8 or 9. And there's another 3, 4 coming. But that really doesn't stop us here on the farm. We just got to proceed ahead. That's the best I can say. So, I haven't had a chance to really review the unit yet. And I'm not the best skilled at it. But I need it today. I've got some goat pens here in the front that got to get cleaned out. I'm not going to be able to wait much for the weather because I can't let my manure get snowed in. So we did a quick clean out here on the area. I'll show you that. And we got the skid fired up. And basically what we've done at this point is make ourselves a path out of here that we can do some work with. We've got the skid down there, which I just took down there. I'll show you that quick. And then I'm going to fire this little jitney up, and we're going to put her to work. We'll see how this thing does. It's one of these little units that is not proven yet for us, but we're hoping this little mini loader or mini skid steer or whatever you want to call this can really help speed things up here on the farm. So I'm going to fire this little jitney up, and we'll take it for a ride. So this little beast is actually quite fun to drive. It's got a high and a low, and then it's basically got a normal and an overdrive. So you in normal, you can be in high or low speed. You kick it into overdrive, and you kind of lock up your front end. You don't have your front end hydraulics, and all the hydraulics go to the wheels, and this sucker takes off. It's got to go at least 5 or 6 miles an hour. This thing's a little beast. But here I am. I'm going to show you some different camera angles. This is the first time I've ever driven this, so remember I might be a little herky-jerky with this little Outlaw. But I've brought it down here to the biggest stall we have in the goat barn to try out. It's a stall that I can get typically the skid steer into, the 325. But I can't turn. I got to back up extremely careful. Versus with this, I'm really hoping I can just drive in, grab my stuff, load my dumpster, and then have somebody take the dumpster and come back, and we can be a lot more efficient with it. So I'm giving it a try here. One of the first ones I'm trying is just kind of bite at the hay. I'd kind of like to pick up some of this thicker coarse hay with more of a grapple type front end, but again, I told you in the other day's video that I just haven't gotten that yet. I've ordered a grapple from Erskine, and it's coming. So I got to wait a couple more weeks. But I can use the 4-in-1 bucket just like that. So right in the middle of this snowstorm, off we go. 4-in-1 bucket it is with the teeth on the front of it. So that's what we're doing. Now, when you get going on this little machine, you got to be careful you don't throw yourself off. So right now I do have it in low range of the normal, so kind of the lowest speed it can go, and I've got most of the power going to the wheels still and not to the bucket. So remember, this has the ability to give all the power to the bucket or no power to the bucket. As you can see, I can take a fairly good sized load of manure and crap with this little device. I know I'm a little herky-jerky, but it's actually pretty good. I mean, I'm impressed with how well it's working. Being it's slippery, it's snowing out, I'm a newbie at the controls, and I'm just starting to learn how to use this little Sherman little tank. I'm quite pleased. It definitely is stronger than the comparative Dingo I was trying. It's probably not quite as strong as that big track Toro that I had on the farm that I did a review on. If you look back in my farm equipment videos, you'll see a review on one of the Toros I had out. That was a bigger tracked machine, but I couldn't maneuver like this. I think that machine could pick up about as much, and it was definitely a little bit smoother being it was on tracks, But again, it was so much longer, and it was harder, and it was just not as easy to maneuver in my situation. I really like the small, compact size like this. I know there's a couple other companies. Sherpa makes one this small. The Toro Dingo, which I tried to buy, makes one this small. But I'm really happy that I ended up with this Outlaw. I'm real glad that Adam down in Missouri was able to come up with a diesel one for me, and I'm glad I have it. I like that it's more powerful than the little Dingo diesel with wheels that I got to play with. I certainly like the way it took my LEDs and my block heater and stuff, and how it was easy for me to customize it. I had that video just put out the other day, so feel free to take a look at it, folks. It's literally the video right before this, and you'll see that I was able to get some things on it that are going to make it really nice for working in the barn. So this view here is kind of one of my more favorite views of it working. I've got the camera kind of right down on the ground so you can kind of see how well it's going. One of the things I noticed is that when I get into the barn, I get much more traction than when I'm outside trying to come into it. And as I get traction, I'm really able to push into the pile, shove that pile forward, and really get some good bites and big quantities of hay in it. However, there were still times where, just because of how the operation of the machine was, I found it necessary to just push into the bucket and wait for the kids to load the hay manure into it. Now, this section of the goat barn, as you can see by the kids, is still cold. And believe it or not, it's a little bit frozen to the ground in spots where they've heavily urinated on it and stuff in this part of the goat barn. So we are using the kids to pull the hay out around a couple of toys. There's a great big half a concrete culvert in here that the goats stand on, and they got to pull it out from that. There's certainly the VK feeder. They got to get the manure and hay out from that. And there's a couple wall feeders they got to get it out from. In the past, they would pull it into a pile. We'd bring in the skid with the dumpster, and we'd all just heave it up into the skid dumpster bucket, and then out it would go to make multiple loads. So this is really saving the lifting. It also saves the time. Typically when we do this by hand, it takes probably at least 3 hours. 2.5 to 3 hours, depending upon how many kids and how many farm hands I can hit this with. I've got 2 very, very capable farm hands that have come in and helped these 3 girls out. And when they're in here bucking it out, the fastest we've gotten it done is about 2 hours. But again, I'm trying to make it better. So today was impressive with this machine. We were done in just about an hour, and I don't think I was as fast as I could be, because once they got it piled up, I probably could have been faster if I just would have had a grapple and I could have just grappled it. But again, that piece of equipment's coming, and I'm learning. So here's the view from inside the skid steer. My bride Molly is inside it with my youngest son, and she's just kind of filming me as I load her up, and then she goes and dumps. Now, again, before we would load this by hand, so it's so much nicer to be able to pick up about a yard at a time and dump it into this, dumpster. And I think this dumpster holds like, I'm going to guess because I've done a review on it, but I don't exactly remember. I think it holds like 6 yards. So you can get probably 6 good scoops in this depending upon how you do it. And again, you can see I'm just learning the controls. I'm figuring out what's the easiest way to make it work. So I understand if you ridicule me that I kind of suck at driving it, but I'm sure trying. Like I said, I just yesterday got the LED lights on it, the battery tender hooked on it, the engine block heater that I put down on the oil pan. I just got that stuff done. So getting that stuff done was a big help for me. It made things a lot better for me. That's for sure. So I'm real pleased with how it's going at this point. I just think that if I get the right implement on the front of it for the right barn that I got to clean out, this will even go better. Couple other things that I noted on the machine. I like how when you fill it up with diesel on one side, you don't necessarily have to go to the other side. The tanks do communicate. I think that's really nice. Kind of on a down note, there is no fuel gauge on this little devil. So you do have to look to see how much fuel you have. But I hardly went through any fuel in basically an hour's time, so that was good. As far as the 4-in-1 bucket goes, I found it easier to dump, just like I'm dumping here, where sometimes I would just come up with a full bucket, lift it over the top, and open the bucket to dump it. That seemed just about as easy as trying to tip the bucket. I definitely liked the added, on this Erskine bucket, the added forks that I can put on the front, and I definitely got used to the controls very quickly in the Outlaw. This control here is all the way to the wheels, or all the way to the hydraulics. There's your overdrive, and there's your high and low. I thought that was pretty, simple. Got your forward and backward, and you got your bucket controls there all in your hand. And then up at the front there, you've got your controls for hydraulics. Throttle there is in the middle, and you can see the red little light. It's got a temperature gauge on it. Again, no fuel level gauge. I wish it did. And it's got an hour meter on it. I've got 3 hours on it. I received it with about just shy of 2. And by the time I got done doing everything, that's where we're at. Here's my wife on the machine right now. She's doing the best job she can as to trying to learn it. She wanted to get on it and give it a try, so you know what? You got to start somewhere, right? So you might as well start on the last couple scoops of the day, and let her kind of get the feel of this machine. All I can say is I think she did a fine job. This is, it's a new kind of feel for her. She's used to driving the skid steer with joysticks. She does have an excavator, the 26G, which does run with the levers as far as, forward and backward and moving it. But again, it's not quite the same as driving this. This drives more like, the skid steers of 10 years ago, which, used to have the foot pedals on it, if you know what I mean. So it drives a little bit more like that. So she's getting used to it. She's dumping it just fine. I think once the two of us get going on it, we'll find that even our farm hands and our couple older daughters here, they'll get on this machine and they'll be able to use it quite effectively too. I've got it set up now so that we can work at night. I've got it set up that we can start it in the dead of cold by plugging it in, warming it up, and keeping the battery charged. So I'm feeling really pretty good about it. I really like the Yarmar engines. I have them on a lot of my John Deeres. So I think this is going to be a great product. And we're just going to get better at using it, folks. That's the gist of it. Please like, subscribe, and follow our channel. We certainly do need the support. And keep watching as we keep putting out more great videos like this.